The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people were evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, a group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Aloha everyone, welcome. This is Hawaii Volcano Update. I am Dane with Hawaii Tracker, and I'm joined today by Lou from Two Pineapples. Thanks for joining us, Lou. How you doing? You are muted still, but yeah, we got a little bit of a special presentation.
I am here.
All right.
Thanks for having me on tonight.
All right. So yeah, we got a little bit of a special presentation lined up. We're going to go through the normal recap and talk about the latest activity on Kilauea, but in short, there's not a lot happening on Kilauea or Mauna Loa. So we're going to take this opportunity once again. Last week, I did a special on the 1935-1942 eruptions and bombings of those eruptions by the U.S. Army. And so we're looking back in history, and this time we're going to look a little bit forward. We're going to be talking about AI-generated art. We've created a whole bunch of different pieces, mostly focused, or they're all focused on Hawaii, but mostly focused on the volcanic eruption. We have some other stuff in there as well. We ended up using 5 of the leading AI generating platforms, which would be MidJourney, Stable Diffusion. We use BlueWillow, the Adobe Photoshop Firefly package, the new one there. And the last one would be DALL-E 2 by OpenAI. So we used all of them to create some unique little images. We're going to run through them and talk about those things. Hopefully it'll be kind of fun. We have some interesting stuff, some somewhat scary stuff, some ridiculous stuff, and some really interesting stuff in there as well. So hopefully you stay with us for that. All right, Lou. So I think I will go ahead and dive into the update. It should be pretty short because, again, not a whole lot going on. But we want to tick the boxes and, do our normal dig. If anybody has any issues with the stream, please let Lou know in the chat. 2 pineapples, and you'll be able to relay that.
Let me throw this in real quick, Dane. Don't forget to make sure you let everybody know these are AI generated. Nothing is happening here.
Right.
It's what we put together.
Right. All right, so let's dive into the volcano update first, and let's go. All right, so this is your Hawaiian volcano summary for the week. In short, there is not a lot happening. Kilauea is paused. Mauna Loa eruption has ended and is in a repose period. Let's do Kilauea first. Kilauea ended its eruption on June 19th, and everything since then, including the seismic activity, the eruptive tremor, has been really low, and it's been able to lower the alert level down from red, down from orange, into yellow advisory, which is kind of the best you can ask for. They might go green, they might not, I don't know, but right now it still has some earthquakes up there, and still has some inflation, but overall pretty quiet. You don't, feel that sense of, we're building up to something right now. It's kind of like, okay, this is just a repose period. So we have the update from USGS. Really not a whole lot new here. The latest sulfur dioxide emission rate was 160 tons per day as measured on June 22nd. And hopefully we'll be getting something more recent, but don't expect much to change on that. Maybe a little bit more diminishing rates, but that is a pretty low rate already. But it's still pretty high in terms of, people that have allergies or sensitive to the SO2 if they're downwind from it, or if it consolidates in an area, there can be those health impacts. So let's look at some data here real quick. For Kilauea, we're looking here mostly at this 1 month tilt and the 1 month earthquakes. You can see this gradual inflation since just after June 19th when the eruption ended. So let's say on the 20th, started inflating again. Last week we had this dip and it went back up. Kind of looks like a DI cycle, not clean, but potentially. And it continues its slow, steady rate of inflation with a low amount of earthquakes in the background. GPS stations in the rift zone are pretty constant. We see this Pu'u'o 1 year plot, and there's not a lot of deviation in that, which is good for people living on the East Rift Zone. Moving on to Mauna Loa, we got a new update. It's green, so we get once a month updates as compared to USGS or at yellow. We normally get once a week updates. There can be the yellow plus situation where we get daily updates as well. But here we are on the monthly updates for Mauna Loa. And really, there's not a lot to talk about here. There's a bunch of few small earthquakes and the background levels, which is the indication of green. So not really building up, but it is recharging and replenishing. It's just at a predictable steady rate. So looking at the monitoring details, we can see some of the earthquakes around there. There's really more of a scatter plot, not a whole lot of concentration or high frequency of earthquakes happening. We can see earthquake counts are in the several earthquakes a day category. And if we go down, compare that, this is more in the weeks, earthquakes per week. But we can see that in 7 days, we're getting over 400 earthquakes just before the eruption in December 2022. So Mauna Loa is quiet and not a lot happening there. Earthquake-wise is a little bit more interesting. We do have some earthquakes that have happened. We have a 3-4 that was on the just Malka of Lapahoehoe on the slopes of Mauna Kea, but this is a deep earthquake, more known as a flexure earthquake. This is due to the weight of the island pressing down. It's these big mountains. They have a tremendous amount of weight. They end up bending the lithosphere of the crust, essentially, and we get these earthquakes from time to time. They're pretty random. They can happen offshore as well, and we have a scatter plot of those. So all these earthquakes that you're seeing out and scattered around, including this one in Hilo, pretty much all in the same boat. Nothing really concerning about those. So with that will do it for the Hawaiian volcano summary for the week. All right. So, Lou.
Well, that was kind of it in a nutshell, wasn't it?
Right. Now we get this image that you're seeing here is the current conditions up at Holly Mau Mau. There's not a whole lot to look at. This is the last real image you will see. Actually, there is a couple in there, but then we end up messing with them terribly. So there are some more real images. We'll point those out, but mostly from here, disclaimers, there's fake things about to happen, right? We don't normally do this kind of thing, so we're just throwing this out there. This is AI art about to happen, and
let me just throw this in there because this is something that Dane and I have been talking about for weeks, and we really talked about for the last 2 days that we've been working on this. How important it is for you guys to know that when you're looking at thumbnails on YouTube or pictures on Facebook or wherever you're looking at them, take a second look before you just maybe jump to like something maybe happening, because it's not that difficult at some levels to create this type of material and put it out there and really shake you up a little bit, thinking like, whoa, something may be happening. I tested it on one of our moderators today and kind of fooled him, and it's tough. These pictures even kind of catch Dane and I by surprise. Like when we're talking, man, that's pretty darn good, right?
Yeah. So I'll just throw a little intro out there. So in terms of AI, I'm doing my background is more into this area of academia than it would be in the geology aspect. My background is in computer science. We did some interesting projects back at university, including machine learning, including things that somewhat transfer over the knowledge base, but these new large language models, these and these ray tracing and all this stuff that's happening now is pretty special. But we just not going to go into the technical stuff on this, right? This is more of a showcase for fun. Right. There's going to be we're not going to demo these things in terms of like, this is how you prompt, this is how you do things like that. We're just going to talk in terms of like, this is how we created this thing, and, talk about what the issues are and things along those lines. The main reason that I am doing this is to raise awareness. The AI in general has been exploding over the past year, specifically since GPT-4 released, and MidJourney has came a long way, and that's going to be the one we're focusing on here. But the OpenAI DALL-E 2 is also going to be involved in this. So we're going to talk about those things a little bit, but again, it's not an intro into AI. It's more like, hey, let's laugh at some things. And the idea is that by the more you see these things, the more attuned and accustomed you are to being able to identify them as AI generated. At this point, with how much time Lou and I have on these things, it's not just like, hey, that's AI generated. It's, hey, I think you used this particular platform. Like, I think that's a stable diffusion attempt.
Because we used I think we went through 4 or 5 different platforms.
Yeah, 5. Yep.
5, including Adobe Photoshop.
Yep, the Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead, and we can see there is a warning on the screen for AI imagery.
There it is.
So these are some of the better ones that we were able to create. Now this one, it looks really rough with the people, but it's more like the scene that you're looking at in the slopes that are interesting, because this could very well be taken from the bridge at Coconut Island, looking across Hilo Bay at the shoreline of Hilo, upslope Malka, and something on Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, depending on where you want to, say the angle is. It's not perfect, but this is just, we're just throwing this out there as the starter, right? We got to start somewhere. And this was one of the first ones I made. This was before, this one was made with DALL-E 2, and this was before you could upload images. So one of the things that's interesting is these I'm going to explain a little bit, but these images are created one of 2 ways mostly. The first way is that we use a prompt where it's just word-based, and we tell it what we want it to create. So in this one, I'd say something along the lines of, give me an image looking across Hilo Bayfront, across the ocean, towards the Mauna Kea, which is erupting with a fissure, putting out a ash cloud, or something along those lines, right? And that would be how you get an output based upon the words that you give it. The second way that we do it is we upload an image, and then we modify that base image with the AI. So you're going to see 2 variations of that. And this is just in the beginning, so this was just using it with the word prompts.
Which, that picture looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
Dane, you with me?
yeah.
That picture looks pretty good from being from the bayfront. Unless you were from here and you knew Mauna Kea should be in the background.
Right. And I mean, there's issues with the hands and stuff like that, but those could be fixed with Photoshop, right? A lot of this stuff could be fixed, essentially. These are just base images without editing. So here we have another DALL-E 2, and this one was supposed to be Hilo, Hawaii at night, looking across the ocean of Bayfront up at the volcano of Mauna Loa, erupting towards the town. Red glow illuminates the night and reflects off the ocean water. So we can see the red glow, a little bit of reflection. You could see this being kind of by the...
It's borderline. Borderline again, right?
Right, I could see this being over by the Mauna Loa almost hotel, a little bit more.
Yeah, it would have to be over there.
Right.
It would have to be there. But then you lose the glow, which is coming from the west, because you're turned too much. But
yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's like, again, unless you know what you're looking at, you could almost believe this type of thing.
And if you know Hilo, even at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, the lights are there, but they're not that bright. Right?
Right.
And the place isn't lit up that much.
Right. All right.
It's a good photo, though.
Yeah, I know. I like that one. It's almost artsy, too, right? Like the exposure got messed with and stuff. Like there was an amateur photographer that had the exposure wrong or something like that, and that's why the lights are so bright. Something along those lines. It almost is able to put errors in it that a photographer would make. That's one reason I like that one. Is it
kind of how I take pictures?
Yeah, me too.
A lot of errors in them.
Like a cell phone would, because it tries to automate and approximate a bunch of stuff, and it will make errors in the process.
Hey, give me a good old cell phone filter. I'll fix anything.
Right. So this one's cool. This is our first just straight prompt. So this is an actual image I'm showing from the 2022 Mauna Loa eruption, right? Tim, I can't remember his last name. Sorry, Tim, but a great photo. It was on the New York Post. So we just took that, uploaded it, and we're like, all right, so add another fissure, a small eruption viewed from a distance from Hilo, Big Island, realistic, 4K. These are just some of the extra tags that we throw in. And with a little bit of tweaking, we were again able to get something that almost resembles Hilo Bayfront, looking up at a fissure added much closer to town. And
that's a lot more realistic of Hilo Bayfront right there with the lights.
Right.
A lot more realistic.
Right. And that fissure, I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty good. Right, because it does blow out the foreground fissure. It does blow out the exposure and stuff like that, which would make sense. The cloud actually looks good off of it in terms of the night reflections and stuff like that. It's decent. Like, I'm like, guys, these, like, if you don't know what you're looking at and you see it on your phone, that's the thing.
Again,
like your phone, you could almost buy it, type of thing. And
one thing we talked about too, Dane, was that not everybody's running the newest iPhone or the newest Samsung phone. You could be on an older phone, and the picture quality is only as good as what you're looking at, right? Or through the phone that you're looking at. So you could take a good AI or a poor AI shot, and through your old phone, it may look pretty darn realistic because of what you can actually see. You're not looking at on your 8K or your 4K Samsung TV at home.
Right. So yeah, we're just doing images right now. I do have a little bit of a video I want to try and show in a little bit, but it's going to take me a second to pull that up. We'll do that at the end.
Ooh, video.
Yeah. It's disappointing. It looks good, but it's disappointing. This though is pretty cool. Almost decent. This is stable. This is MidJourney showing up, trying the same exact prompt, using the same image as the last one. And I tried several times on this, and this was really the best that it could come out with. It's decent, but yeah, you could tell. But it's not bad. I mean, in terms of realism and the plume and stuff like that, I'm not.
The volcano itself is real, but the foreground is what blows it for me on this one.
Right.
Just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. It tries, but yeah, that angle doesn't exist essentially.
Nope. But the volcano itself, the plume is And we have a couple more plumes coming up that show that's one thing I think that AI generated really well
Right.
over our experiment the last few days was the plume.
We will have more to say about the plume generation because it gets weird really quickly. It gets weird. And you can't stop it from being weird. So we'll get to that. And that was a complete surprise. But there's a little one of Holly Mau Mau, and it gets the Fisher wrong. But again, the plume looks half decent. And the caldera placement, I'm like, I could see that at, angle existing out there at night, across from like Steaming Bluffs or something like that, looking across at the other side. Like I could.
This is where DALL-E went bad for me because if you look at that plume on there, you see it squared off.
Right on the left, it squares. It does that with some of the hands too.
Yeah, hands do the same thing. Hands and legs.
Right.
What'd you call it? Ezard scissor legs.
Yeah.
We're
gonna get some. Right. Some weird stuff happening. But in terms of like the thing that DALL-E gets right that the other ones don't is it gets like the composition right. It doesn't execute it right, but it's like laying out things that I'm like, yeah, that's a believable composition and the angles and stuff like that. The Fisher looks like garbage type of thing. But besides that, I'm like, hell, the placement even. I'm like, I'm not mad about any of that. It's just it just needs to clean it up a little and it's there, right? Where we'll see some of the other stuff where it goes off the rails. Right, so here we get our first entry of Stable Diffusion on just Mauna Loa erupting in Hawaii. Stable Diffusion really didn't like complexity in its prompting, so we kept it kind of simple for it. And it's not bad. It's, the summit of Mauna Loa essentially with the baby plume up there. Just getting started on maybe some kind of eruption, but yeah, it's interesting. We don't like the 2022 eruption. We don't there were no real plumes to be seen. So it's interesting that,
especially
but
like
it has happened, right? We know that that Mauna Loa does have that capacity. It's just we haven't seen it essentially.
Again, if you didn't know, if you didn't see it, if you didn't catch anything from the past, you might believe that.
Right.
I mean, it's the plume again.
The plume looks like to me though, just the coloration of it. It looks like a rock fall. It looks like a pool rock fall or something like that.
I see that.
Right, and that's exactly what we get those photos all the time type thing. Especially after 2018 when it drained out and you get the thing was highly unstable, so you get rock falls commonly. Put up a decent plume like this, people be like, "Is something happening?" No, nothing's happening. But like. This isn't terrible, again. It's not good, but Stable Diffusion is not at the high level of the other ones.
No.
No. This was our first entry from Adobe Photoshop, and it gets a lot wrong here, but, the ocean entry looks decent to me.
Yeah, Adobe Photoshop was different than MidJourney and DALL-E and BlueWillow because it seems to want to put in more actual photo quality type images where some of them, unless you put in a URL of a photo, then you get, when you put the URL in, you get the photo quality. But Adobe Photoshop doesn't allow you to do that, but it wants it. It wants to give you some type of photo. Every one we put in, I noticed, was always coming up a photo, which is interesting. Not always perfect, but clean, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So now we get into some MidJourney crazy stuff.
I like MidJourney.
Yeah, MidJourney. Yeah, MidJourney is the best in pack, but it's also the one you have to pay for to play with.
It does cost money. Yep.
All right. So here we are trying to just give the internet essentially. This is like the photos that we hate to show. Essentially, we don't show these. So I'll show you an AI generated one because I know nobody lives in that house. Essentially, right?
Nope.
But this is what, the news media ends up wanting, but we don't like showing, and a lot of people don't like actually showing. But, I mean, it looks decent.
This is what they ask us for.
Right.
Do you guys have this? Do you guys have this? We're like, no.
Right.
No.
So the interesting thing with this is something new that MidJourney added, which is the ability to zoom out and generate the things on the side. So here we have the zoomed in. And then we zoom it out and generate the sides of it. So we're like, okay, it's in a parking lot, and there's more trees and the bend continues. But I mean, it's getting pretty advanced, and we're looking at some of there's even more patches coming out. So really impressive stuff. But
if there wasn't a house on fire and it was just maybe a fissure, it would be a beautiful picture.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is you could, generate it with or without the house, essentially. With many houses, without many houses. And it's a crapshoot, right? How many times do we play things, put things in, expect one thing, get something else that's cool, but totally not what we were looking for. Right?
What do you think overall, just to throw this out there as we're midstream here, what do you think the percentage of accuracy was as we were doing this? 30%?
Something like that.
You think about it. We'll catch that on.
I think that's vague enough. I mean, there's all kinds of
30
extra things in there in terms of complexity and linking and stuff like that. 'Cause just like not all of our queries are the same. Some of them were just going off the handles on, but it's weird. A lot of the stuff that you get told, like, oh, use the AI to help make the prompting. It's like, yeah, but have you seen what it outputs? Most of the stuff it tells you to put on the thing doesn't even matter, right? Mm-hmm. There's more like toolkits that'll help you, right, and things like that. But it's really
more efficiently
a lot of guess and check process that's happening here. Mm-hmm. You try something and you get what you want or you don't, and then you try again and you get what you want or you don't. So here we have another one where we take a base image, this one of Kona. And here we are on the slopes of Hualalai. And we try and modify it and make it look like Hualalai's erupting, coming for Kona. And this one, I'm like, it's a little tall. It's a little too easy to see. But, it's not the worst in terms of rendering and stuff like that. The hotels, stuff like that. I'm like, those actually look pretty real. Even the rocks, they look good. The ocean looks good.
Yeah, I could see some of the places that we walked around on islands. That's where we were walking. Right, it's pretty close, pretty good. That's a good. That actually came out really good. But then again, I'm gonna be a little more biased because I think MidJourney takes very good care of us. They do a much better job than the others. So I expect a little bit better quality, but I also will be a little bit more nitpicky with MidJourney too.
Right.
Because I expect a little more.
Exactly. All right, so going down. Thanks for everybody for joining us today for a little bit of unorthodoxy, but show what's out there, essentially what's possible. Not a lot of people are stress testing these things, so let's do it. So we have a picture of Mauna Kea. This is a real picture. We see the observatories up there, and import that and tell it to make it erupt. And it's not bad, really. The fissure doesn't look good, but the sky and the slopes and stuff like that sky is so reminiscent of Mauna Kea.
That was the first thing I picked up when you showed that to me. I was like, oh, that's Mauna Kea. Before I even knew what picture you had used on it, I was like, oh, that's Mauna Kea. It was just spot on. The rest of it, yeah, maybe believable. To go any which way on that one. But the skyline itself was right on point.
Yeah, the elevation essentially of the thing, and all that. So, yeah, that one was like, oh wow, it was doing not very good on those, and we'll show some of the failures here in a minute. This is one you did, and I was like, man, this actually looks pretty realistic coming down Mauna Loa from the Southwest Rift Zone, going towards near Milili'i, somewhere in that area.
Right, exactly.
It's not perfect, but I could see it's pretty good, especially the way everything gets cloaked in the clouds and stuff like that. I'm like, yep, the clouds build up, and then the sun in the afternoon, because you got that afternoon sun over there off the right, and I'm like, yeah, the clouds do back up against the wall, against Malka there, and create these cloud banks, and yeah, I could see this around Hualalai and stuff like that. I'm like, it's not the worst.
What's interesting is how it picked up on all of those little things that you mentioned, like the cloud barrier that's running the sunset. Because if you look up, it's what I put in there was Mauna Loa volcano eruption, massive tsunami on the coast of Hawaii. It could have been anywhere. If you look
Right.
down, there's no massive tsunami coming in. Yeah, it's some high seas, especially for us, that's pretty high seas, but there's nothing else to give an indication of a big plume, a sunset, that
Right.
the cloud line that we see. Just, I don't know
It's
if
just
there's
training
some type
data.
of, right. Is it picking up on what we're doing as we're sitting there for hours? You and
Well-
I, we're sitting there for hours entering this type of information. Is it burning us?
Not us. It's not backfeeding. I don't think. I don't think any of these systems are really doing that live because that's a whole different process. They do that more in house. There's something called RLHF, reinforced learning with human feedback, and basically you know those little thumbs up and thumbs down. When it gives you the option. That's basically RLHF in a nutshell, right? Is you're giving it thumbs up and thumbs down. But that's really the refinement phase. The training phase is based upon all the art and imagery that you could throw at the thing, essentially, and do it in a way that makes it make sense on the matrices, all the stuff that makes no sense, the black box side of thing.
Right.
So it's really falling back onto patterns that it knows from all of its training and to fill it in. And it's like, obviously it has some West Side Hawaii photos to draw off of because it's pretty good on that front to me.
Pretty good. The slope is pretty dead on.
Right. So here we have one that's less on, and this was more complicated prompting. And I believe this was one I used GPT-4 to help create the prompt. So it gets kind of wild, and it doesn't really improve it in the grand scheme of things. It kind of does, but it's more trial and error still, right? If you try enough things, eventually you'll find something that is going to be crazy. But making it reproducible, that's the issue, right? Just because we get one of these photos once doesn't mean we can get it again easily, even with the same prompt.
This plume almost looks cauliflowery.
It looks legit to me just because it's like getting up into the stratosphere at like, say, 30,000 feet. Yeah, up top.
Yeah, up
and
top.
It would blow out like that and get all in the jet stream, essentially. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. It's big, but that's not Mauna Kea. Like,
No.
and nothing in Hawaii is that flat leading up to Mauna Kea for that amount of distance. But besides that, the plume looks decent. Like, I like the way it's getting blown out with the wind, and there's two different directions the wind seems to be blowing, like at two different elevations. I'm like, see, that's the cool part to me on that one, right? Because
Oh yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
wind's blowing it off one way, and then it gets up into the stratosphere, and it starts blowing the other, essentially. I'm like, that's okay. I like it. So that's the end of our volcano section for now. We'll be going back into it, but we wanted to show some other stuff. So we had a tsunami.
Oh, we're not done, are we?
Oh, with what? No, we're not even close.
We're not done.
So, yeah, this one, not bad. Interesting thing on this one is as soon as people get hit by the water, they get apparently transformed into scarecrows that are T-posing.
That can happen. Yes.
I'm not aware of this science, but apparently that's a thing in the MidJourney's mind. But it's pretty good on the ocean side of things. It looks more like huge storm swell and a bunch of people being ridiculous, but hey, it's better than the other ones we're going to show here in a minute.
Yeah, this one's not bad. I mean, it kind of looks retro-y, postcardy retro-y, which is kind of cool, except for all the scarecrows in the water. But if you fix some things, it's not a bad picture.
Right. It tried
Just
on
weird.
that one.
Just
And
weird.
I don't know if this one tried worse or tried better, but
we spend like 30 minutes talking about this one, right?
I don't know. I was laughing at this one. Like, where is this? Like, what is happening?
This is supposed to be Hilo Bayfront.
with a
right?
fissure of some kind that looks more like a volcano tornado that's in the water. And
What did we put in on this one?
along
Fissure opens up Hilo Bayfront. Yeah. Well, we tried.
Yeah, that one's a. All right, so this is the best stable diffusion one we were able to pull, and this one is looks it's supposed to be on Hawaii Island, but this is clearly looks like Oahu to me. I don't know, just my eyes. I'm like, okay, Oahu, that ain't here with those peaks and stuff like that. But you might be able to find some angle similar or something like that, even if it's mirrored. But I'm like, hey, it looks decent, right? The water looks believable. The trees look believable. The angles, I can't speak on, but hey, I'm like, that one ain't bad, right? I could see somebody running that and thinking that one's real in terms of a tsunami hitting a still.
Do you see the pattern? Do you see the pattern between Adobe Photoshop and Stable Diffusion? They're both really trying to mimic
DALL-E
actual
does too.
photos.
Yeah, DALL-E too.
And DALL-E, yeah.
BlueWillow,
really try to mimic.
Right. BlueWillow and MidJourney try and do similar things, except just MidJourney does it better.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this one's one of the crazy ones.
Here we go.
So trying to make some realistic eruptions that might scare people. This was, what Diamond Head might look like if it was erupting. The angle was wrong on this one, right? It was supposed to be Waikiki, but anybody that would recognize that would be like, yeah, the angle's, completely wrong. So we took it back in and just played with it a little bit, and surprise, surprise, we got the angle fixed, right? And it's not perfect again, but hey, that might fool some people, essentially. The volcano's a little close, It's a little big, it's things along those lines, but it's not the worst in the world. And yeah, this one here it's the plume on it is pretty convincing. But again, it's what kind of eruption are you going for? Are you saying that it came up and exploded a little bit? Or are you saying that rock fell into a caldera like 2018? Anything along those lines. And, with Diamond Head, it's like, who knows what it's going to look like in a photo, essentially. But
what's huge, right? Diamond Head, in comparison to Kilauea, it's enormous, right?
Oh, I'd have to do a size comparison.
I mean, we don't, because we've never seen it erupt.
Right.
It's pretty believable. It's
right.
Huge. It's a huge mountain.
We just don't know the style, if it would do that kind of a
right.
thing, right? It could be effusive, essentially, and then it's more like Kilauea, and it wouldn't be a brown cloud. It would be more SO2 based instead of particles like this is, right? Because this is obviously, again, this looks more like a collapse explosion during the 2018 eruption up at the summit, the plume that would come off of that, or something along those lines then, because of the red coloration, mostly. But, I mean, it looks pretty good. I mean, I was impressed. And then you made postcards.
I did make postcards. They'll be available at the gift shop on the way out today.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, again,
it's amazing what you can do. I mean, if you're in business and you want to do something different, I mean, it's out there commercial wise. You can make some pretty amazing things out there.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And I think this one's better, actually, the second one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that looks almost like a nuke went off, but hey.
It has its I mean, while Dane and I were doing all this, we were going through different pieces, maybe than what you guys may be seeing. All right, Dane, we were looking at, what are the bodies? What are the people standing there doing? They're all but about one or two of them are looking at the volcano. And that's not in the verbiage at all to say have everybody look at the volcano. But they're all looking at it except for two people. One guy I think is looking back, and this wasn't Edward Scissorlegs, was it?
No, that was a different one. Yeah. Pretty cool. I mean, the different styles. Now I want to get into the head-to-head challenge. So
Which is good.
This was something just to test a little bit of their knowledge and their ability, and just put them in a side-by-side, giving them the same exact prompts. Very simple prompting, just to see how they do. Right, so first we tried DALL-E, and we asked it to give us a zoomed-in view of a Pohoihoi-type lava flow, and it gave this, and it's like, yeah, that's a win. That's Pohoihoi. Good jobs. DALL-E nailed it. So now the next part of it is the trick of it is a zoomed-in view of an type lava flow. So let's pull those up on 1 second. see if I can find something to show real quick. Yeah, perfect. So here we have the types of lava just to showcase. Here we have Pohoihoi on the left. We have that velvety, that smooth, that ropey, that really slow, gradual type lava flow. And then on the right, we have the which is just a bunch of crumbly rocks just rolling over each other, essentially. Right? It creates all these jagged rocks that are hard. The Pohoihoi is more, if you're familiar out here, the Pohoihoi is more the Kalapana flow, where the 2018 eruption and the Mauna Loa eruption in 2022 were style fronts. All right, so back to the thing. So that's the question, right? Do you know the difference? Show me the difference. What do you know? This is what I want to see, essentially, right? Show me Pohoihoi, show me Right, so ask DALL-E, we got Pohoihoi. It gets a point. We asked it to show and it showed Pohoihoi once again. So it does not get a point, right? It kind of messed up there. I think I will. There we go. So it gets 1, not 2. So
I'm back.
Yep, sorry.
Hey, everybody. It's all right.
So stable diffusion. We try it again. We ask it for Pohoihoi, and I'll give it a point. It's trying type thing. It's got the ropiness, it's got the smoothness, it's got that. It's trying to make spirals for some reason, but it's mostly that.
Yeah, I was really struggling. You can see this. I mean,
It's
you see the
struggling.
struggle in it, right?
Right. So we'll give it a half point there. And we ask for and again, I'm going to give it a half point on that bottom left one.
Yeah.
Because that's as close to crumbly that I've seen type thing. The bottom two, I'm like, I can believe those, like, it's trying. It doesn't get the rocks exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
But the texture of the rocks, I'm like, yeah, they're crumbly. They're like that. It doesn't look Pohoihoi-ish, but it's a weird hybrid. So it only gets half points, essentially. No full points. MidJourney, we come down and we do the Pohoihoi challenge, and it gets full points on the Pohoihoi. It looks pretty good. It's got some...
Well, those came out so sharp, didn't they?
The weird bottom left is kind of funky, but looks a little lava lampy, but, the top right looks good.
I mean, if you don't focus in on it hard and just kind of lean back and enjoy the view,
right,
that's a pretty cool shot.
Right, and for anybody, since we're showing this now, I think this is the first 4 shots. This is normally the way that these systems give you imagery return. So you put in a prompt and then it gives you 4 images to work with. So we're showing the collection of 4 instead of focusing on any individual one to try and give a better picture of what their capabilities are, what their variation is. And we're just keeping these prompts simple just to see what it can do. So MidJourney gets a point for Pohoihoi. And it doesn't know what is. It does not get a point. It gave me Pohoihoi once again, just like DALL-E did. So right now it's really DALL-E and MidJourney tied. Looking pretty good, but don't know what Pohoihoi is.
It couldn't differentiate between the two at all. Maybe if we tried a different
Stable
term.
Diffusion got the closest on the right? Mm-hmm. It gets the texture right. It's kind of crumbly and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but it's not a solid panel. But besides that, if it would have put rocks instead, it would have been there, right? These was just like, no. So BlueWillow just, God, there's something special about BlueWillow sometimes.
This was a special moment. This was when we were doing BlueWillow and running through these. I mean, we both kind of kept saying, why do we keep seeing highways, like time-lapse highways of lava everywhere?
Right.
Non-stop, every single one. And then where did the cascading waterfall come in? How did that even get in there?
Yeah, I have no idea on how any of this takes place. The only one that I can give it any grace for is the top left one. I'm like, those flat ones, I'm like, I could see that being a type of Pohoihoi that got, weathered down by the ocean. I'm like, I can
Yeah.
almost give you partial points on that. But it's a little weird. Like, that's not what
A
we were
lot
after.
weird. It's a lot weird.
And even on the bottom left one, like, if you look out past the obvious, ridiculous lava thing and you look at that harden just below the sun, I'm like, yeah, that looks pohoi hoi-ish. Like, flat enough, but it's still probably but it's like,
Yeah.
you weren't supposed to do this is what you're supposed to do and it's like, we're not even in Hawaii anymore. I don't know where
even know where we're at.
Yeah. One of them looks like a volcano in New Zealand almost. One of them looks like, I don't even know, some fantasy show. Right? And one looks like the Karakoram in like Pakistan or something. Like, I have no
I
idea.
mean, it could be. I mean, honestly, because there's no rhyme or reason to any of these landscapes at all.
Right. So BlueWillow just loses its mind sometimes. And that leads us into the bad. So this is where it just,
There we go.
times where it just lost its mind. We're just like, okay, that's worth just recording because it's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So here we're trying to get Mauna Loa erupting with a small pyroclastic flow. And it just made I don't know what you would call this. It almost looks like the meteor from Don't Look Up or the spaceship from Independence Day is
Right.
showing up above the island somehow. I don't know what it was on this one, but that's what these ones are about. You want to take this one?
This one from BlueWillow.
Yeah.
Oh, this was another one where the fissure erupting Kilauea volcano, people everywhere panicking, right? Because I wanted to really, one thing Dan and I talked about a lot was putting in some, the tourists, the people, the photographers, the videographers, what can it do when it handles people? Because we know that sometimes you get 6 fingers, you get 4 legs, and so this one here, how it comes up with this, I don't know. This could be the eucalyptus forest that runs up Mauna Kea. It doesn't say it, but up our coastline, we have some beautiful eucalyptus groves up there, just acres and acres, and they all look like this. They're super tall, straight up and down, but with a rainbow of lava coming in, just got strange. And there's only one person there, and he looks like a very comfortable, casual person watching a massive stream of lava. That could be Jagger stand. That's probably how Jagger would stand if he was that close to lava.
To
Anybody else?
we're
backstepping.
A volcano rainbow.
Right?
No, but there was a comment
Next
in chat for the previous one that's pretty funny. Calls it the good old Minecraft floating islands. It's like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the volcano rainbow.
One more thing on this guy here with the volcano rainbow. Look at the beautiful cascade water that's still flowing as if nothing's happening 50 feet above it.
It's just a rainbow.
Hey.
It's all optical illusion.
Yes. That's an interesting one. Again, BlueWillow. Not my favorite. That's probably at the bottom of my list.
Meanwhile, MidJourney's just off on a Inferno tangent on this one.
MidJourney did that. Did you notice for a while, if we were doing things, all of a sudden it went Inferno on us? And no matter what we were doing, everything just kind of was hot. It wasn't kind of landscapey or anything. It just went kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, this prompt, I think, was to make it kind of nuts. Fissure erupting Kilauea volcano, people everywhere panicking.
And remember, that's the same, take a look, that's the same prompt used on BlueWillow. It's exactly the same. 2 different platforms, exact same prompt.
MidJourney wins on that one, but it's not a great win.
Absolutely.
It's looks more like a tire fire than it does a volcano, but hey.
I've been to those parties when I was in high school. Right there.
Right. This one was trying to do things on Mauna Kea with the observatories, and it made the eruption like a nebula. Yeah, that's some special stuff right there.
I'm going to use the word spectacular.
I mean, I was going to use the word MDMA, but I mean, pick your own choosing on that one. I have no idea what is going on. And this whole prompt was wild. Like, it was I had to get off of that one immediately because it went wild. This was our attempting to do the Diamond Head one, and I said on Diamond Head on Oahu erupting, and it's like, okay, take Diamond Head and put it on top of Oahu. It's like, okay, no, that's not what I meant. Like, I see what you went for though. That was on MidJourney.
Isn't it crazy how sometimes it takes our prompts and doesn't become realistic at all. Everything we can go through 20 or 30 prompts, and then all of a sudden something completely unrealistic pops up, and we didn't change too much, but it just went silly, crazy silly.
This was a failed tsunami one. This one is actually good. Like, it was having some good returns, except I couldn't get the water to stop erupting from inside the hotel. Essentially, it looks like the tsunami is coming from the hotel pool for some reason instead of from the ocean. But besides that,
which would explain the 35 or 50 people that are still in the water,
right
down the bottom.
Yeah, it's not ideal, this one, but
no,
the coastline, I was like, it's believable-ish type thing, and it just could not be saved. Okay, you got to do these things because
gosh, I had to take a break. We were doing so much on the volcanoes, the eruptions, the tsunami stuff. I was like, let me just get this out of my head for a little bit. And I looked back till when was that? It was last year sometime. We had the laser beams that crossed down Mauna Kea, right?
Right.
And let me see if we can generate this. It was not easy. We have a few up here. So the first one is green beams of light and space rain down on Kilauea volcano. And I rewrote this several different ways, and it just doesn't want to duplicate the actual beams that what Mauna Kea had up on top of it.
Right.
I mean, you got green lava coming down through there. We go down to the next one, and I was on BlueWillow again. Remember, not my favorite at all. Multiple green laser beams from space, right? And I put in daytime on this one, and tourists. We have a road walking into a caldera. Actually, it kind of, when I first saw it, I thought of green sand beach, right? Because it's kind of like that big bowl.
Right.
Or what's
the point kind of
snorkel?
looks like it.
Right. What's the big snorkel place over in Oahu that oh my gosh.
Sure, I don't know.
Hamamanama Bay, one of those bays over there, right? That everybody snorkels in. It's protected.
Right.
Kind of that's what it looked like. But this is a silly green cloud coming down.
It's a smoke signal for a helicopter.
Smoke
I mean, it's like
go.
a signal flare, and you're calling for an airdrop essentially on Fortnite or
Right.
something. I have no idea.
But I go down, and MidJourney does not disappoint.
Pretty
Green
much.
laser beam from space, right? And it touched everything. People standing in awe. Something like you'd see in Independence Day. This was the moment right here. It didn't duplicate anywhere close to what was over Mauna Kea, but
No.
it was kind of like, whoa, that's a pretty cool shot. Something sci-fi, something more realistic,
Right.
but not realistic at all.
I mean, that top left one, that laser seems kind of powerful with it drilling a hole that big. But hey,
Yeah, that's actually drilling the hole.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of what it looks like there. It's just like a space drill.
It's just bad all around. It was bad, and it's not. A lot of times I've got some messages in the last few months because I've been not as long as you at all, Dane, or have the education in the AI world, but I've been messing with it since about January pretty consistently, and it's not easy. It's not just put it in and it just comes out exactly like you want. I mean, we're 800 photos of work to do these types of projects.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work.
Right. All right, so now we move into the funnier things. This is like the really interesting stuff.
I don't know. I thought that was all pretty funny.
That's pretty funny, but this stuff gets wild now. So again, we are
Yes.
importing images. This is an image of Kilauea at the collapse and explosion in 1924. This produced a rather significant ash cloud deposited around the volcano area, down to Curtistown even. It's pretty decent, more ash than we got in 2018 by a decent amount. But yes, we took this photo, I uploaded it into the thing and told it to, I wanted on this one. I gave it the simplest instructions. I just want to see it colorized. Just colorize this image, right? There's other tools, colorize me. There's all kinds of tools for colorizing with AI, but I want to see these tools, test them, right? So we did that, and this was just on MidJourney, and this was the first return. And what? Right? What? And
get a lizard.
I don't know, but it's going to get weird. So then I tried it again, and I told it, just add color, nothing else. Right? And at this point, I'm like, wait, what is it about a woman's face? Do you see a woman's face in this thing? Right? So I'm just like messing with it at this point, and I'm like, hey, yo, add color, no faces. So here we have no faces. It's achieved that. It looks like the colorized burqas of some kind against, I don't know, a pink cloud. The top right one is the closest attempt so far without a face. And it's down some kind of color explosion. Looks like a crayon factory melted down or caught fire, got bombed, something along those lines. And again, the faces, even when it's told no faces, it's like a woman's face is there. And this is, especially with I'm like, so what is it making some connection in its training between these types of plumes and Pele of some kind? So it's seeing a woman's face. Is this just it amorphizing everything that it sees? Is it just trying to do like what the human mind essentially does? Because we always get people that will tell us like, hey, did you see that face in that plume or in that lava flow? Did you see that shape? And for me, it's usually, no, I didn't. But we'll post it on Hawaii Tracker, and it'll blow up, and a ton of people are like, yeah, I see it. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's so amazing. Right.
I'm horrible at that too.
Right.
I just don't always see it.
I don't see
at
it
all.
But the AI, and I'm coming back up to the original,
AI sees it apparently.
and I'm like, where's the face though? Like,
yeah,
I don't get it. I don't see it.
you see the girl with the tree down. Scroll down. It's she's got the broccoli hair on her. She's looking kind of to the left with a tree down. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, they got some interesting
got the broccoli
ones.
plume going on
Right. And this isn't the last time that this will occur, right? So this one was cool that you did, taking images and taking this image and trying to mess with it.
I'd like to add in the URLs, adding images, and letting it kind of do what it wants to do. This is from the most recent eruption at Kilauea that Anna took. And did you read the MidJourney prompt there?
Extremely detailed real photo, wall poster, people standing around with cameras in large view of the planet's surface, or planet Earth in space surrounded by stars, and then the ratio of the aspect.
It's pretty far off of that.
Yeah, it's kind of, but it does type of check the boxes, kind of.
It did check some boxes.
Right?
It did.
It's got the little lady in the bottom right. I don't know what that guy is on the left. He might be really small. It's got the galaxy thing going on. Incorporated the thing, the photo.
There's a portrait painting up in the wall on the right hand side, and I thought at first it was like a conquistador kind of view, but I really couldn't make out whether that was what they actually put a whole nother vision of what AI sees in its own mind of a portrait over there. Didn't really. It is actually something over there, moonbeams or stars. Something else is on that portrait over there. It did a lot. It did a lot for not asking it to do a lot in this.
Right. All right, so moving on from that one. Now this one was interesting. We're asking it to create on Kilauea, a forest of ohia trees are the most dominant types of vegetation, dramatic lighting, composition, and that kind of stuff. And this is what it thought of ohia trees, and these are not ohia trees, but in this bottom left one is interesting because that looks like a lahua blossom on an ohia tree very clearly type of thing, where it's not even a question. It just doesn't know what the tree looks like, what the shape looks like, but it knows what the blossom should look like. So it just put the blossom on every part of like an oak tree essentially and was like, yeah, that's an ohia. And none of these are ohias, but that's kind of the closest just because it gets one aspect of it dead on, even if it's presented as, you know, in a terrible fashion as it is. But that is an interesting take on the ohia tree. Right, at least like I can see where it went off on. Right,
We only wish we had those types of colors on trees here. We don't have 4 seasons, so we never even get trees. When we get a tree that changes colors, we have a few of them, but we don't ever get them in mass quantity like that.
Right,
not even close. It's
pretty cool.
They tried.
This was probably BlueWillow's best attempt at something. Or no, there was one other good one. One of the Mauna Kea ones was really good. But this was a BlueWillow trying to create a pyroclastic eruption on the peak of a shield volcano in Hawaii. And instead it was like, you meant a ocean entry in Puna? And I'm like, yeah, you know, that's not the worst right there.
Wasn't the worst.
Wasn't the worst. Not what I was after. But if the prompt was an ocean entry in Puna, and he gave me this, I would accept it. It's just, you know, sometimes you're completely hitting and missing with these promptings on these AIs. So here we are uploading an image again, Polly Mau Mau, a more recent image. This was just a week ago. And we have that 4 p.m., that 3:30, you know, this around this time, around 4 p.m. every day, if the conditions are decent, you get these rainbows seen from that west side, looking over the caldera. But we uploaded that and just lava flow explosion. Pretty simple. And, you know, it actually gets the caldera decent. It gets a summit eruption decent. Not the worst type of thing.
Believable.
Believable. It's not what's up there, right? The caldera doesn't look like that. There's no collapse size, no down dropped anything. No. But... hey, we're just messing around. And the reason why it's here is because then Lou made the thing lose its mind.
I pushed it to the limit, huh?
And now it makes no sense at all. It has no idea what it wants to do here. I don't know which is the worst or the best or the most interesting.
Oof. Bottom left. I don't know. Bottom left to me was just how, I mean, I had it in a headlock at this point. I don't know. It just went berserk on us.
It doesn't like the custom zoom, basically.
No, at all.
Right. And so this was the standards. We zoomed it out 1.5 using the standard zoom, and it didn't lose its mind. Right. It was pretty consistent with what it started with. But when we tried to do this custom aspect ratio nonsense, it exploded into a fire of nonsense.
That's right, because that's when we did that test at 1.5 after the custom. You're like, let's run that test on the 1.5 to see, is it really
the custom or
right? Yeah, shook it up.
Yeah.
That custom was pretty awesome.
You think awesome? I think.
I have to look at it from a different perspective.
Okay, let's talk about looking at things from a different perspective, because this was a Hawaii News Now article. This thing. Right here. This is Warren Fitz's image, and they're like, oh, yeah, it looks like this character off of Moana. I haven't seen the movie, but I was like, that's hilarious. I do not see it. But now I have to put that image into the AI, especially knowing what I know about the women faces thing that we were seeing. I just got to know. I just got to know. And I sent the query, and I get the woman comes back out, but there's also a fire chicken.
I love the fire chicken.
I don't know the relevance of this. I don't get it, but it's kind of like in that there was that weird. If we go all the way back up to when it was doing the MidJourney attempts on the face with the plume from 1924, and it added that first one of like the lizard. It's like lizards and chickens and women's faces. I don't know, but there's some weird things going on in there.
It sees something.
It's funny.
It must see something.
Right. We're just testing this thing on edge cases. Really, it has to have a bunch of training data that is specific to Hawaii in order to appease us. And when it doesn't, we kind of abuse it pretty hard on that front and expose it. But some of them, every once in a while, they'll just pull out something that you're like, it has some, training in there for sure on the Big Island.
Sometimes you'd be like, hey, check this out. Let me show you what I just got. And we would sit there for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, can't even catch our breath laughing. Like, how did it come up with this from what we put in there? It's just completely abstract, random. What AI sees at times blows my mind. How it could see that.
Right, pretty funny stuff. I'm like, it's weird to me, like that it really likes to bring this woman into the lava flow, essentially, or a different woman each time. But I'm like, that's interesting, and it's like not particular race here. It's like the first one I saw was an Irish woman, right? Yep. And it was like, okay, well, that's interesting, but it really likes that trend. There's a few other trends that when you start playing with it, you'll get to know them, you'll get to see the trend. But eventually it gets to the point again where you recognize even the good ones. You're like, you just recognize the style. And you're like, no, that's MidJourney. That's either Stable Diffusion or DALL-E. But I can just see the style that it's going for and what it's doing. And your eye starts to look for the errors in it better and better because you know where it's weak. Essentially.
Did you happen to notice the girl on the top right? She has no neck on her guitar.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of things wrong, but you know what it gets right? The hand. It actually gets the hand decent. The hand is normally really hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I only see 4 fingers.
One might be just in the shade. It's hard to see there.
Now you're giving AI the benefit of the doubt.
It's hard to say, but that's a decent hand.
No, it is. Compared to what we've seen in the past, it's pretty good because those are the things that we were looking for. Is it getting the fingers? Is it getting the hands? Is it getting the legs? Because 8 times out of 10, we would get an extra leg. We would get an extra finger. Right.
I'm just going to come up to some of the better ones, and I just want to pick one apart real quick. One of these ones. So, like, looking at this, how do you see its AI? Well, you look at the wheels of the lawn chairs. Those are not right at all. They make no sense. You look at, what would be on this one? The waves don't exactly look accurate. The break wall looks good. That's a good feature. You'd be looking at the angle as well, right? You'd be trying to figure out, does this angle exist? And obviously this one wouldn't. Not with the hotels and stuff like that, the proximity. But these are the type of things you're looking for. The sunlight looks decent. The angle would be somewhat correct in terms of the sunlight. The hotels have an issue with they look like they're the first one. The closest one looks like it was cut and pasted in. Essentially, it has it doesn't exactly vibe. The windows look weird. It doesn't look like a balcony. It looks like it's wavy. It's just these things, they start adding up. And this is, again, a good one, right? This is one where we're like, wow, that's actually pretty good. Most of them, it's like, yeah, no, that's garbage. If you look through at the hotel immediately under the eruption site, it looks like it blends in the windows with the vegetation in this little hole, essentially. It just, you can kind of start to see, and even the coloration.
When you start picking pieces apart, yeah.
Right.
But start seeing it all.
This is, again, why we're talking about it, just because we have a bunch of time on these things, and it's like, yeah, we can tell, but we see people look at things that we're like, yeah, that's obviously AI written, and they're like, oh, look at this, it's real. It's like, okay, no, when that's not even a good one type thing. So we wanted to show you what we thought was some decent stuff. Created some of our own stuff. and get it out there before anybody else really did, because, you know, one thing just to be doing AI art, but to be talking about specifically the volcanoes. We haven't even talked about the implications. I don't see exactly, as a lot of, you know, the obvious one is like, oh, the misinformation. I'm like, yeah, but it'd be easier to do like misinformation around a human caused disaster rather than a natural disaster, because natural disaster takes all kinds of faking, and not only that, they have expectations, whereas, you know, you faked like a, you know, let's go worst case type thing, and you had MidJourney fake a school shooting type thing at some high school or whatever on the island, and you used real photos and stuff like that to splice in. I'm like, yeah, see, I can't disprove that instantly, because, like, you could show me whatever photo, I don't care how realistic it is. Right now, a Fisher 8 going off, and I'm like, it's fake. I don't know how you did it, but I know it's fake.
Mm-hmm.
These human-caused disasters where they can happen like that, I'm like, yeah, see, those are easier to fake because it's harder to verify and things like that. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue for us. I think people are going to be mostly using it for clickbaity images, things along those lines, but some thumbnails, stuff like that. But wholesale fake forgery, fake news, I am going to have a hard time buying it that it's going to really fly. Out here, it's just going to be so hard, so niche. But for other stuff, I'm like, y'all guys better watch out. Not for us on this type of thing, but on some other stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a big problem. But we're just showing, you know, in the aspects of the domains that we know.
As everybody becomes more proficient in the prompting and how to build all this, we're going to see, especially when it comes to eruption-based events, we'll be able to see what the activity is based on the thumbnails that keep popping up. We'll see what's going on, as well as, like you said, other weather-based events in the next few months. Because I think we're reaching a point now. We crossed a line. I saw that MidJourney made a huge update. Everything is running fast and it's flowing real nice. You know, there's BlueWillow, which is people can use for free. There's DALL-E. There's a lot of free options for people. We'll get a good idea what people are going to use them for coming up here. I think after the next eruption, whether it's here on Big Island or if it's Iceland or wherever. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, though I did want to show this last video. I can.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
And this thing, it looks good at first, but oh my god, it's so loud. Sorry about that. Right, and it's giving you a text-generated briefing on the activity, essentially, but it's like a fake one altogether. Everything is fake in here, except what is real is these are real clips, right? So what it's doing is it's just mixing clips, some of them from Hawaii, some of them from Kilauea, it looks like. I've seen at least two. I'm like, yeah, that's probably Kilauea, right? Maybe it might be Iceland, but hard to know. But it's just throwing a bunch of clips in there with a bunch of text gibberish, essentially. And you can make it, you know, this one, it's like homes are being destroyed by lava. And then it just cuts to this. I don't even know, this is Saigon? Is this Taiwan? Like, where are we?
Right.
Like,
that was a weird one at the end there.
That's not Hawaii, weird. Like, type of thing.
That's not Hawaii.
That's not Hawaii.
No.
This is that's Iceland. That was Iceland.
Yep.
Like,
yep. Right.
I'm like, I don't know. But it's like, this is the type of stuff where you're going to have to get used to it. I'm like, that's just like, cookie cutter style, just AI throwing basically taglines, hashtags together, and just, you know, throwing GPT-4 narration over the thing, and bam, there you go. But it's absolutely ridiculous to me, at least. But yeah. I'm like, that'll fool people. Even my first time when I first saw it, I was like, no, you didn't. No, you're not. And then I started watching it. I'm like, I see what you're doing. It's dumb. And it's gimmicky. And it's going to get people once good, at least, though.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, right?
Yep. All right. Well, I think that does it. I appreciate everybody that tuned in today. Philip Ong will be back soon, and we'll go back to more our standard style. I don't know, but we'll see what Phil has to say. There's may not be a whole lot to talk about, and we continue talking about some other stuff. But it's been fun. You know, we got to talk about some different
Great
things.
time,
I appreciate you taking, filling in and,
Absolutely.
talking to me about we talked about some interesting stuff. We start off with the recap 2022 or 2023 eruption up in June. And then we talked about this today. We also had I had an AI or a World War II episode about 1935,
Good
1942. Just
I really
a little bit of
enjoyed that
history.
one.
Yep, some fun stuff in there. Just talking about some different stuff that try and keep some people, keep you guys entertained when these downtimes are happening. So appreciate everybody that tuned in. He is Two Pineapples, and I am with Hawaii Tracker. Check us out, Hawaii Tracker's Facebook group. We will be back next Thursday, 5 p.m. Standard Time. Unless something happens. Right now it's really not expected, but hey, you never know. If it does, we will, try and go live, do something about that. But if that doesn't happen, next Thursday, 5 p.m. All right, that'll do it for me, for Two Pineapples. Aloha, and Hawaii Tracker. Aloha, everyone.